So for the briefing today, we're going to be looking at how we can build different bridges into our community. I'm joined with three experts here.
Hi, my name's Jo Gordon and I'm based in Wembley, North West London. Here's my little assistant, Funny Bunny. And I head up a charity called Daniel's Den, which offers parent and toddler groups to parents and carers in North West London. And I also lead the London network of parent and toddler groups, which is an informal network to support toddler groups in all the 32 London boroughs.
I'm Kate Giroux. I'm the London coordinator at Care for the Family, and we're a Christian charity whose mission is to strengthen family life in this nation. And I work across London as part of the community engagement team, which means that I'm working with a range of people who are either working with families or looking to support families. So that might be churches or schools or local authorities, charities, individuals, anyone who's in the business of supporting families.
Yeah, my name's Chaz. I live in London. I'm working with the Mahaba network, and Mahaba means love in Arabic, and we exist to equip churches to make ministry to Muslims a normal part of church life.
Brilliant. So Kate, first of all with you, why do you think it's important at this time for churches to be relating and supporting families?
Well, I think the key idea at Care for the Family is that every family should have somewhere to turn to, both in the good times and when family life is challenging. And I think fundamentally, we're called to love and to serve. So, supporting families gives us as churches just a great opportunity to engage with our communities, but also to meet a real need and to kind of build a lasting legacy through helping families be strong and stable. And I think, family life is really fragile. There are ups and downs for all of us, and all of us have storms in our family life and things turn out differently maybe than we've expected. So I think now more than ever, if the first lockdown taught us anything, it was that actually if we can give people the tools to build a strong home life, that will really help them to cope, especially in these times.
And for you, Chaz, in your role, why do you think it's important for churches to connect with the Muslim population in London?
In London, there's over 1 million Muslims, and most Christians would consider them to be unreached. Many have never heard the gospel at all. And if they have, they've probably confused it with the Western lifestyle and think that's what Christianity is. So we need to be able to share with them what our faith is really about, what it really means to us. And most Muslims, when the gospel is shared with them in respect and gentleness, are very, very open just to hear what we have to say and really respect the fact that we have faith and like to meet people of faith. So they'll be more than happy to ask you questions and learn about your faith.
And Jo, for you, why do you think it's important for churches to connect with mums and dads and tots?
Oh my gosh, well, those of us who've had children or have got children in our families know that the birth of a child changes everything and life is never the same. And I think the fact that there will be, there's 140,000 babies born in London every year, and many have been born in lockdown, and the partners have only been there in the last stages of the delivery room. Just the whole fear and mindset of being pregnant and that going into hospital to give birth. Oh my gosh. So I just think that whole nurturing of the newborn babies and their families, but also the loneliness and the isolation that parents feel before lockdown. Imagine what it's like now. There's so many stories that I could tell about that. So I think creating spaces for people to build the relationships that matter is just absolutely vital, because it's so hard bringing up children on your own, and we need each other.
And then for you, Chaz, you might say, okay, we want to connect with Muslims in our community, but what are some of the stumbling blocks that stop the church from building authentic relationships?
Yeah, there's a number of stumbling blocks that Christians face. One is that people find it hard to connect with Muslims, but actually I think that's often because we're going about it the wrong way. If instead of approaching them as an ideology, if we approach them as people, and remember that Muslims have families too. They have the same issues that we have. And actually, nearly all of us have a bridge of relationship in London with Muslims through family, through work colleagues, through our neighborhood. And so if we see that as a bridge for sharing, then we can get on and just share our love of Jesus through those relationships. Second reason is that people have fear and think, oh, I shouldn't be sharing my faith in the workplace. Whereas that's a misplaced understanding, really, because we have every right to share the gospel in the workplace if we do it with gentleness and respect. And Muslims really respect it when we speak up and say that we have a faith, when we do it with respect. And the last thing I'll share just at the moment, but there are other reasons, is often people don't know what to say and think, what on earth will I say to my Muslim friend? But actually, your testimony is the most amazing thing. Most Muslims haven't heard a testimony like you have. Most Muslims are open to receive prayer, and you can pray with them for their everyday family needs, especially in this difficult time. We can demonstrate Christian love to them, and we can offer a portion of gospel. These are simple things that actually we've all got to hand and we can all do without learning anything. So I'd recommend that we just do those simple things and use that bridge of relationship in a loving and respectful way.
Brilliant. And for you, Joe, I guess normally with Daniel, the things you're doing very much practical, people coming together into a building, but in this present time, how can the church really connect and support kind of those with young children?
Oh, I think there's some incredible ways that churches can support. And I think in terms of stumbling blocks, that sometimes I think a lot of people have really found it hard to connect because they feel that everything has to be perfect and that they feel inadequate. What can we do? Because people can't come into our buildings and the restrictions. And I think for Daniel's Den, we've turned that on our head and just seen, how can we bring what we do into your home? And we've seen some amazing barriers be broken down. We've created this amazing craft pack and a whole online presence that is really gathering momentum. And I'd just love to just share a story about a family where we really impacted. And I think the situation that people are in during lockdown, the things about domestic violence is a massive thing. And just before Christmas, we were giving these craft packs out on the streets outside a church, getting people to collect them. And I saw somebody pushing a pram down the road at the other side of the road. So I just waved and I said, come, we want to give you this. And she came and we gave her this craft pack, and being able to give her something full of love and practical stuff for her, she just started to sob. And she just started to open up how she was living in a women's refuge, that she'd had to escape the family home with her 2 sons and her 4-month-old baby, and how she was living in this hostel. And this pack was a way of connecting with her. But within 2 weeks, she got put into temporary accommodation in another borough. I contacted 2 churches there who took round food parcels and Christmas presents. And it was all just through this practical being out there on the street. And I think the stumbling block sometimes is we're not getting people into our churches, but actually we need to get out and be where people are and offer the love and the support in a language. I always say people need to know the love of Christ in a language they understand. And I think it's doing things physically and showing an interest and sharing that love in a way, I think it's amazing.
It's really interesting listening to Joe and Chaz, because I think the issues are really, really similar for all of us, So I think in terms of supporting families, often, again, the thing is people just don't know where to start. Churches are thinking, how do we even get going with this? We're barely able to keep our heads above water, just keeping services going and all that kind of thing, and all the adapting that's needed to happen. And it just seems a big stretch to go further. But there's so many things we can do. And, that's part of the reason I'm here. I'm available to chat it through with churches and think about what resources we might have at Care for the Family that could help. But this sense, I think, of lack of trust is often a difficulty. I think, like you were saying, Chaz, about, relationship, it's so important. I think often if people don't know you, there's that sense, there's that defensiveness, and almost a barrier goes up. And if you can, build on what you already have and the people that you already know, the relationships that you have, that you've already formed. That is so rich in terms of being able to go out and support those people. So if as a church you have a relationship with the local primary school or the local secondary school, you know, schools are crying out for help right now. They are really struggling. And if the church can come alongside them and say, look, you know, we've got some resources to help you support families. Let's get our heads together and think about what we can do. That's a great relationship to build on. Or as Joe was saying, you know, the toddler groups, so many toddler groups haven't been able to meet over the last few months, but, you know, you've got those relationships. And if you can build on that, you know, maybe those people would like to, you know, get together online and do an online parenting course, for example, which could give them real practical help and support, you know, create a space where they can share the struggles of their parenting together. I heard recently the story of a church who's been producing food parcels over the last few months and given them out to so many local families in their communities. And then recently they decided to run an Alpha course, and they put it out there to all the people that they've been supporting with food parcels in the last few months. And I was astonished to hear the numbers they've got signed up. They have 200 people signed up to this Alpha course, which is incredible. I mean, this is a big church that we're talking about, but actually it just shows, I think, you know, when you've got relationship and trust in place, you can do so much more. So that is the place to start with the relationships that you already have and the people you already know. And then the last thing I would just say is that sometimes what can be a barrier for supporting families is actually Christian content. And I think, you know, a lot of the families that we want to support would not necessarily be open to explicitly Christian resources. That can be off-putting. And so thinking really carefully about what resources we use with them is important. So that's why at Care for the Family, we've got a lot of resources which are suitable for people of all faiths and none. We also have our explicitly Christian resources, but I think for a lot of families, what's really important is just coming alongside them with resources that they can access and talking the same language as them and showing them that we're on their side.
So the final question is, can you give me a couple of top tips in regard to your area and how churches can really engage with that kind of people group? And second of all, perhaps one resource that you can people can connect with that you produce yourselves. So over to you first of all, Jo.
There are lots of really good stuff out there. So look what's out there. And I think the resource that I would really recommend to people, I'm going to go straight into that, Andy, is there's a couple of Facebook groups. I think the 1277 Facebook group is an absolute phenomenal, rich resource. It's a supportive community that gives ideas of things that you can do during lockdown. And I have been absolutely amazed at the way in which toddler groups have been doing things so creatively over the last 10 months. You know, there's all this thing about churches being closed and all that sort of thing. I think actually it's often been the toddler group that's been the one thing that's really already had the connections, as Kate was saying about relationships, and Chaz. Those relationships we've already got, we're already so well connected in the community. It's just taking it higher, lower, wider and deeper, these relationships. So I think having a good Facebook online community, so the 1277 community, and also there's the London network of toddler groups. But this is very London based, and every month both these networks meet to talk and share about the joys and challenges of toddler groups and to pray for one another. And I think that's one of the most important things. And my big thing is start where you're at and don't compare. Don't think you've got to be like the toddler group down the road or what you've seen happening. It does not have to be perfect. I have done some horrendous things, but people, it's one family at a time. And that's what I keep saying to people. Just remember, you're reaching one family. If you touch one family that day, that will change their world. And it's all about the ripples from that one family.
The main thing is to remember that you are best placed to reach the people in your community because you know your community, and across London, so many different communities made of so many different people. And I think, you know, top tip number one is to think about what are the main issues and needs among families in your community. you know, all communities are different, all families are unique, but what are the key challenges in your area? You know, what are the aspects of family life that are most under strain in your area? And then to think about who you already know, and starting with that. So just talking, you know, more about this trust in relationships idea. So start there, start with the people that you know. What are the issues that need meeting? And then, of course, Care for the Family has tons of different resources that you might want to draw upon, you know, across marriage, parenting and bereavement support. But right now, a couple that I'd like to flag would be, you know, we have an amazing confidential listening service called Careline, if you just need someone to talk things through with, if you're going through a tough time. And then also we have some amazing free befriending services. So, you know, if you know a parent who's really struggling with their child who has additional needs, we have a befriending service that can help. You know, if you know someone who has lost their partner at a young age, again, we have support events and befriending services that can help. You know, if you sense that parents really need a safe space just to share their struggles, you know, how about just getting a little group together online, either on WhatsApp or on Zoom, you know, one evening a week, and going through some of our parent talk materials. We've just adapted our parent talk course to go online, and it's specifically now designed to be used with those video conferencing platforms. So there's lots of great stuff out there, and more than happy to talk to anyone who's looking for resources to support their families.
The top tips I would give is echoing really what Joe and Kate have said, is build a real relationship with people through family, through work, through neighborhood. Let's be the church where we are in our situation right now. We can still continue to be the church. And Muslims are people, they're families, and they're suffering too. Their community is suffering just as our community is suffering, perhaps more so. Maybe there's an instance which is higher amongst them. Share contact details. You can keep in touch. We're digitally connected these days, so we can carry on the conversation in numerous kinds of ways. And you can get training. We have training available online, and we come alongside to coach churches in how you can share your faith with your Muslim neighbor. We come alongside, we do that for free. We just help to see where you're at the moment and see what the next steps are. But the main steps would be to share with family, work colleagues, neighbors, and just to start to share, and we can help you with answering the questions they may have as that relationship develops.
Brilliant, guys. Thank you so much for your collective wisdom. So much there. I guess in this time when often there are all these barriers up, but we can be building bridges into the community, making new relationships and seeing what God will do.